So really broadly, we as a foundation were founded at the end of 2012 when New Belgium Brewing Company, I love that we're in a brewery, when New Belgium Brewing Company became 100% employee owned. So the woman who started our foundation was the co-founder and CEO of New Belgium. She always, as part of her transition plan, knowing that she wasn't going to be running a brewery for her entire life, wanted to make sure that the positive, not only the culture and kind of ethos that she had built into her company, but the way that the company supported its employees would persist even after she was out of the professional picture. So her solution was, as I said, to sell it to her colleagues, and that was the liquidity event that allowed her to take that wealth and turn it into this foundation. So we're, at this point, 3.5 years old. We work in the communities that the board members are from. It's an almost exclusively family board. So for us, that's the Bay Area in California, the Colorado kind of Front Range, and then the Puget Sound, Seattle area. I actually do not live in Colorado. I was living in Oakland until this summer and recently moved to Ann Arbor, so kind of on a side note, it's exciting to learn more about everything that's going on in Detroit as I kind of get familiar with this new place for me. But so we fund in those 3 states, those 3 kind of metropolitan areas. There's certainly a conversation to be had about, I think, some of the points that have been raised already in terms of what places need more investment, how do you broaden who gets investment, what does it mean? We struggle with the fact that we fund 3 wealthy metropolitan areas that are in a lot of ways aligned with kind of the values that we believe in. On the one hand, in some ways we can help support a model that can be used in other places, but it's certainly a complicated thing to wrestle with. We fund in 4 program areas: renewable energy, sustainable food systems, alternative transportation, and youth engagement. And, I think maybe as a complement to that, obviously, grant making. And we also have our corpus 100% invested for impact with an impact investment advisor, and then have a carve out for early stage direct investment. So equity, PRIs, debt, market rate and below market rate. From our perspective, foundations have a lot of different types of capital at their disposal. And, the vision that I try to execute on is being flexible to being able to deploy whatever type of capital is needed in a particular situation. So, that involves a lot of conversations with people, involves understanding how they're building, what they're trying to build. And, fortunately, I have a board that's pretty amenable to risk and innovation and trying new things, and doesn't feel like we need to succeed at everything. I think there's certainly the conversation around privilege and philanthropy is an incredibly important one, and I think that appetite for risk encompasses some of that, and I think there's also a lot of way for us to go as an organization. So that's our program areas. And then I'll just kind of briefly, so we, as I said, we're 3.5 years old. Our plan was always to operate for, get a couple of years under our belt, learn by doing, obviously, thoughtfully, solicit feedback when possible. But after we had a couple years, look back on what we've done and use that to look forward and build kind of our next 5 years plan. So that's what I'm in the process of now. And, a lot of the themes that have already come up is kind of what I'm wrestling with and how I'm trying to build this institution to look forward. So that's issues of accountability. Who are we accountable to? How do we build that accountability that's productive, inclusive, progressive, pushes the field of philanthropy? Obviously, all foundations have their own kind of set of issues to negotiate. But I think the philanthropic space because of its reliance on wealthy donors, isn't always, nonprofits are accountable to foundations, and foundations are accountable to their boards, and that means that foundations are only as progressive or thoughtful as their boards are. And I think that's something that all foundations need to consider, and something that I'm working on. We work on a local level because that's where we know the community. I think it's really important for us to feel connected to these issues, and that's the way that we can have these conversations that allow greater risk, allow transparency and accountability to flow both ways. And maybe that's where I'll leave it, and we can kind of get into more specifics later. Thanks.